I think the future of marketing services is fractional. And so I think for the longest time, agencies have been the prevalent form of marketing services. And so it dates back to the times when mass media was the main form of marketing. And in order to get your advertisings going on radio or TV, you had to work with an agency, and they were basically a media buyer, and they did the creative and all kinds of stuff. I just think today it's a little bit different. I think the way things are going it's really about specialization. It's about being flexible and, having alignment between you and your clients. I think one of the biggest problems that I found when I ran an agency back in, 2014 to 2017, and before I started transitioning into marketing consulting, was that I always felt like I was on the other side of the table for my clients. Like I always felt like I had to justify why they should be spending more money and, doing more things or less things, or it always just felt like they had to have their guard up because they knew that I was essentially a consultative salesperson the whole time. And as cynical as that might sound, that's not a thing that's going on in their brains necessarily, but I know it applies to me when I hire contractors to do renovations in my home. I'm not an expert on home renovations and contracting, so frankly, I'm always kind of a little extra wary about, are they pricing me right, or am I buying more than I should be, or is this right? And various things. And I just find I have to be a little more critical, at least a little more. Just I have to assess things a little more closely to make sure that I'm getting the right recommendations and so on and so forth. So, I found that when I was selling agency services, I had to have that feeling going, and I was like, okay, I've got people, and I can mark up their time, and I would go find the people when I needed them, and I would mark up their time, but I would sell a project, and I would sell the implementation, and I would package it all up, and I'd have freelancers that I would hire, and I would subcontract with, and then I would bring it all together. And I think that model just generally feels a little bit more less aligned with the incentives of your client, because really what your client wants to do is get the most possible value while spending the least amount of money. And so I think the future is a little bit more fractional. It's a little bit more deconstructed. I think of myself, by the way, my name is Kevin Whelan. I'm a full-time marketing advisor, and I also mentor other independent marketers. You can learn more at kevin.me. And if you like this stuff, make sure you subscribe to the channel. But yeah, I think of myself as kind of a deconstructed agency. So where in the past, I would basically sell a service, sell a project, or sell a whatever, and I would mark up other people's time, and I would make a profit on the end of whatever, right? And at the end of it, and hopefully I'd make enough. And that was okay, but it's just a model that's very complex and hard to scale and required a lot of cognitive load. And I've talked about that in other videos. You can go check those out when I compare other business models. Anyway, so the main crux of it, though, is that I knew that in order for me to make the most money, I had to sell the most stuff because I got paid to implement. It wasn't about strategy. Really, strategy is about, doing hard things, but doing precise things that get the best results. And that doesn't necessarily correlate to doing the most things. Sometimes it's being more precision instrument as opposed to implementing and doing more stuff. And so what I found was that the alignment of incentives wasn't really there. It's like when you ask a butcher, what should you have to eat, they're going to recommend meat, or if you ask a barber, should you get a haircut? I mean, other than me, they're probably going to tell you, yeah, why not? Yeah, like you can totally do something with your hair. And it's just, because you're selling, you're getting paid to implement, it just sort of creates this incentive where the more I sell, the more stuff we do, the more I get paid. Whereas as a consultant now, it's not about doing the most stuff. It's about how can I be most efficient with you? How can I save you the most money? How can we do less, but better, more precise? And how do we do things more nimbly? And I think that's really the crux of it. And so the model I work with today as a marketing consultant and advisor is kind of like a producer. I come in with my clients, and I effectively, it feels like I'm sitting on their side of the table. And we're looking at all the options. We're looking at the budget. We're looking at what's possible and what we could do. And I'm looking for, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Now let's go find the right people to do these things. And they're usually, some freelancers from here and maybe an agency over here who specializes in these things, and here's who's going to do this part. And we develop a budget, and we find the right people at the right price points and the right skill sets to do those things. And ultimately my job is to make sure that all the things we do are done, in a way that gets them a net positive financial business result and helps it navigate, what should be done in-house or externally, or when there's roadblocks or uncertainties, having solutions and answers for these things, or when we have to implement something, having templates and examples and so on and so forth to show. And so I find this model to be much more like an in-house marketing manager, except you have a lot more experience because you work with and have worked with a lot more clients, especially when you specialize. You've had a lot of experience inside of a lot of similar kinds of businesses, seen the same problems over and over again, have solutions that generally work, and allows you to innovate, in a more interesting way because you understand the landscape in a more nuanced way. And so I find the feeling I get is that it's much more on the side of my client. And so for a fixed fee, I don't mark up anyone's time. I don't take a commission, none of that. But for a fixed fee, I'll help navigate and make the decisions and create a budget and ultimately help produce a positive financial outcome with the marketing. And that just allows me to have a fixed fee that guarantees my it's all, effective profit. I don't have to worry about marketing about other people's time. So I go and look for people that are, inexpensive over here or expensive over here or super specialized over here or more general over here. And I help find the right people for the client. And the client ultimately wins because they know that they're getting someone that they can trust because they're getting it for a fixed fee. And they know that my incentives are, if I don't get a business result, a positive financial business result, they're going to let me go because why would they keep me? Also, they get to then keep all those individual specialists. So unlike with an agency, they're going to have to go and replace people. And let's say someone's not working out too well, they have to go and replace a whole agency, even though maybe the agency is doing fine in a bunch of places, but is not doing super well with one or two areas. And then it creates this weird thing where you're like, I don't really like that person that's working on my account. And then that creates a whole bunch of weirdness and doesn't really work. With a more deconstructed model, a fractional model where you have a head of strategy or marketing that's maybe fractional or what have you, you're allowed to say, let's swap out this person, let's try this person over here, and you can be more interchangeable with parts. So if you think of business, the industrial age, it was all about how do you mass produce more stuff? How do you create an assembly line of stuff and produce an output that is consistent, repeatable, and efficient? And while that's somewhat true today, especially in marketing, we're thinking in terms of component labor, and that doesn't feel good when you are the component labor. But I also would counter that by saying, if you're a craftsperson who's very good at their one piece, it doesn't matter if you're the master strategist or whatever else. You deliver that one thing extremely well, and that you can take pride in that. So I think there is value and merit and honor in being extremely good at one or two particular parts of the craft, for example, writing or whatever. So. But the main thing is, rather than having to kind of pull out an engine that's not working from a car, you're able to replace component pieces. You're able to find little things that aren't working, aka people or tools or systems or processes or what have you, and replace them. And so it gives you that benefit as well, where the entire machinery can be interchanged and swapped and on a piecemeal basis, as opposed to taking out huge chunks of, like replacing an agency, which is very expensive and time consuming, and you have to teach people, and you don't always know that they're fully onboarded with your strategy or your business or the market. And so it's very expensive to replace agencies when there's multiple people involved. And so there's nothing wrong with agencies. I hire them all the time, especially ones that specialize in one or two different channels or services. But just the model itself is more across the table from your client. I would much rather you sell, and this is what I do, some kind of a strategy and oversight of producer mentality. So we're seeing things like fractional CMOs, fractional chief marketing officers, and they're typically advisors and managers, and they're not, if you're doing it right, you're not in the weeds of execution in terms of doing, but you're kind of managing, you're running the show. Advisory, which is a little less hands-on, a little less project management, but you're still kind of responsible to make sure everything's getting done correctly on time. These are all valid ways. And, you're also seeing things like fractional head of content. So I'm encouraging some of the freelancers in my group that I run. I have a community for marketing consultants to be less, done for you content services and more being a producer, a fractional head of content, where you help me come up with my strategy, help me come up with my big ideas, me or whatever, but help me come up with the topics that we're going to create in our content, and then figure out what the actual channels are going to be on, and then maybe find people for me that are writers, or find people for me that are YouTube thumbnail specialists, or find people for me that are video editors or podcast editors, or people that can take your stuff and produce a bunch of shorts and a bunch of clips and so on and so forth. These are all things that I think, a head of content, a fractional head of content can do for you. Make sure the ships run on time, make sure that, the right work is being done in the right way. And whether that's in an advisory capacity or that managed capacity, you're bringing in the individual people, and then you say, hey, look, these are your freelancers. So long after I'm gone, if I'm, say, your fractional head of content, you're still gonna have your video editor that I've got. Maybe I hired them from Upwork and they're great, and I've trained them. They have all my methods, Maybe there is a graphic designer, so on and so forth. So basically you keep all those freelancers and those agencies, and if I need to go away, I can. Or if you want me to fade back and be more advising and more passively advising, just kind of making sure things are going well and answering questions and quality assuring a few things or checking on topics, all that stuff can work really well. So I'm just of the mindset that, agencies are good, they're fine, but I feel like as the seller of agency services, it's hard because you're conflicted. You're always like, I got to sell more stuff in order to make more money, that you get paid for implementation. And your strategy is just kind of like an afterthought. And some people give that away in the proposal phase. So as the seller of it, you're also having that across the table vibe. Whereas if you're consulting and advising, you're kind of on their side of the table. You're helping them make decisions. You're helping them hire the individual freelancers and specialists. And now also in the age of AI, a lot of stuff is getting done more efficiently and more easily. And so you want to be the person who's able to bring tools and find efficiencies and innovate with those things and do things more and really add value strategically, as opposed to implementation, which I've said in the past is a commodity. It's not that the work is a commodity necessarily, because these are great skills, valuable skills, but it's if you have the right instructions, if you know what you're trying to accomplish, you've got a good vision. AI is doing a bunch of that stuff already. So it's really the value, most of the value is in the strategies, in the planning, it's in the ideation, it's in the conceptual phase. And the execution is the thing that you basically can outsource to a variety of different people, as long as you know what you're trying to accomplish. That's overly simplistic, and I'm not trying to insult anyone who does, graphic design or anything else of that nature. I'm just saying, relative to your strategy, your vision, your creative, your taste, the actual designing of the pixels is like the thing that anyone can do. In fact, agencies push that down to their kind of lowest level employee over time. That's how you scale. You scale by hiring people and training them up and having someone be that expert, and then pass the instructions down to people who are less expensive. And so I'd rather pass those efficiencies back on the implementation side to my clients, help them get the right tools, systems, processes, templates, people, so on and so forth, and sell that strategic layer. So, I hope this has been kind of eye-opening for you. I think there's a lot of scope, if you're doing done-for-you services, to think about, how do I become more of a producer and less of a doer? Because AI is just going to keep taking more and more of the long tail of execution, as I call it. So you might as well, if you're very good at the craft, you might as well take it a level up and say, how do I actually get business results for my clients? Because that's the name of the game. It's like, can you get a financial result for your client? And then slowly remove your hands as the main thing. Charge a fee to come up with the plan, the strategy, to oversee it, to bring in the people to implement or the tools to implement, and then maybe pass that knowledge back to the client, or have those team members work directly with the client. And you may work with your clients for 6 months. You may work with them for 6 years. Some of my longest clients are going on 6 years right now as a marketing advisor. And so people do stay around for a long time on these things. But I just generally think that this concept of this one big agency that's going to do it all, you're really buying convenience when that happens. You're making it so you don't have to think about all these things, or have multiple people to pay, or so on and so forth. But if you have someone, if you are that person accountable for getting the results, you don't need to mark up other people's time. You can charge a fee for that. And I remember, I think I read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, and at the same time I was reading Value-Based Fees by Alan Weiss, and I was like, wow, you know what? Maybe what if I sold something that was basically all profit? Like, what if I took that layer of me as a agency owner and just sold that? What if I made that my business? And it worked. And so this was before, I think I called it virtual CMO at the time. This 2016, 17 is when I transitioned into it. 2017, I believe. And yeah, like it just sort of something I fell into, and it's totally valuable. So you don't have to run an agency to be successful. In fact, I'm way more profitable now, and I work with much fewer clients, and I specialize. I work with the co-working industry as my main specialty. It's just a better model. It's better for me. It's better for my clients. It's everyone kind of knows what they do. The longer you work with people, the more they know exactly what to do, and the less you have to kind of oversee and manage and train them. And so it's just a better model overall, in my opinion. It's more flexible. It's more aligned with the interests of your clients, and I think it's just more profitable for you, the owner. So hopefully this was useful. Hopefully I didn't rant and rave too far in many directions, but If you're interested in this kind of stuff, this is what I talk about. I help marketing professionals, build leverage in their business, create more profit, going from doing to managing to advising to teaching their expertise. You can learn more about me over at kevin.me. That's my personal website. There'll be links to all the training and stuff that I do. I run training and mentoring programs for independent marketers who want to create more profit and leverage in their business, especially in the age of AI as it's kind of changing things. So hope that was useful to you. I'll see you in the next video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment if you want. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.